This is a 2010 Subaru Outback diesel. I've removed the intercooler back here. I've spent the last 3 days now diagnosing a fault where the ECU was refusing to communicate with the instrument cluster. Odd issue to turn up suddenly. We came out to find the car wouldn't start. We assumed low battery, so we put it on charge and still found it won't start. That's when we discovered that communications had failed on the CAN bus, and the ECU was no longer communicating with the car when it was pushed into the run position. It was intermittent. If you put it into, just turned on the ignition, you would find that the ECU would sometimes communicate with diagnostic tools, other times it would not, and doing something like slamming a car door would often restore voltage to the ECU, bringing it back up from the 5 to 8 volts that it was sitting at to 12 volts again, which was really odd. So it took quite some time to track it down, assumed cable damage, maybe rodents or something damaged, or even perhaps a blown MOSFET in the ECU, which is why I have the ECU apart. I'm an electronics engineer, so I have the tools and skills needed to diagnose and repair that. Well, obviously it wasn't the fault, because I've got to put that back together now and goop it up and everything. Anyway, the fault turned out to be failure to do up bolts. We had Repco Authorised repair service in Katoomba service this car. I had them change the clutch. I don't have the tools or equipment needed to lift the car up and change the clutch. It's too big a job for me to do myself. I do all the other servicing myself. Thinking, yeah, we should be able to get that done, no worries. So they took the car, they did that, we got it back, and we had issues starting it initially. Turned out, after several hours of diagnostics, they had not done up the terminal on the starter motor. It was loose and flapping around. They also had not done up, I'll move in and show that, they had not done up the terminal here. There's a rubber boot protecting it, and there's the bolt on the cable there leading into the starter. So that was flapping around, that was all loose. So tighten that up, push the protective boot back on there, because this feeds back to the battery. If this shorts to the chassis, we will have a fire. It's rather dangerous. So this has got a protective boot on it, so even if that cable does come loose and start moving around a bit, it's not going to short to the chassis or one of these or something that else is grounded and cause a major fire, a major problem. They also, when they drop the bell housing off, there is a lead here. You can see this grounding strap here. This goes from the chassis down this lead here. Get the right one. Yes, this lead here. It goes down here and grounds to the bell housing. So they had to remove this in order to pull the bell housing off, and they did the clutch. They also had to pull the whole bell, all the wiring off all of this, because the starter motor is on the bell housing. So when they've done this, instead of undoing that one bolt on either end, they've just cut the cable and then repaired it using a lug. Right? This qualifies as an acceptable repair by Repco Katoomba Automotive Service. So that's an issue. You can also see it's melted to bits, and why, might you ask? It's just a grounding strap. It's not the main grounding strap, that's elsewhere. I'll show you that in a minute. What's happened is they also didn't do up the grounding strap. So there it is there, next to the starter motor, because it's got to be close to it. It carries several hundred amps when it's starting, and look at this. Yeah, that's nice and torqued up to spec, isn't it? That's going to carry a lot of current like that. It's super reliable, a loose connector like that. Come back over here. So the starter motor has been trying to return current through this little puny lug they put on here and this puny cable. Also a fire starting issue. This could also have caused us problems. Now, all of this cabling, so we've got some sensors here and stuff as well, some signal cables that are also here. They all go in this little, there's a nice little retainer down in here. This was open, and all of these cables were just flapping all over the place as well. So they hadn't even done up that little tiny retainer that would have taken half a second to do up. So whoever put this car back together did all these bolts up finger tight, didn't torque anything up, didn't push any of the cables in, did a dodgy repair on this cable. I highly recommend anybody that wants to have a car serviced by Katoomba Automotive Service, Katoomba Repco authorised automotive service, you think again about where you take your car. This is beyond a joke, honestly.